when a lone German shepherd refused to leave an abandoned gas station for 5 years. Most people assumed he was just another stray. But when Keanu Reeves pulled into town and stopped to investigate, he had no idea he was about to change both their lives forever. What started as a simple roadside stop quickly turned into a heartbreaking discovery. One of unwavering loyalty, devastating loss, and a reunion 5 years in the making. Because some bonds can never be broken, and some dogs never stop waiting. And when Keanu Reeves decided to help, the impossible became reality. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden streaks over the cracked asphalt of a deserted highway. The world felt still, as though time itself had decided to slow down, holding its breath in the heavy silence of the early morning. The only sound that broke the quiet was the distant rumble of a truck passing through the long stretch of road, a sound that seemed almost foreign in this forgotten corner of the world. There, by an old, rusted gas station, sat a German shepherd. His fur was matted, covered in dust from years of neglect, but his eyes, dark and unwavering, were fixed on the horizon. It was almost as if the dog had become part of the landscape itself, blending into the deserted surroundings. His posture was rigid, unmoving, as though he had been frozen in time, waiting for something or someone to appear. The gas station had long been abandoned, its pumps cracked and broken, the faded signs hanging loosely in the breeze. No one had stopped there in years, yet the dog remained, never leaving his post. It was as if he had made a silent vow to wait, to remain loyal to a promise he made long ago. As the sun rose higher, its golden rays kissed the tops of the nearby hills, casting shadows across the empty lot. A lone motorcycle appeared on the horizon, its engine humming steadily as it grew closer. The sleek black bike cut through the morning fog, the sound of the engine the only disruption to the stillness. As the bike drew nearer, the rider slowed, pulling the motorcycle to a stop in front of the gas station. He was a man dressed in black, his features hidden behind the visor of his helmet, his expression unreadable. Keanu Reeves. He stood beside his bike, taking in the scene before him. The dog, Blaze, as he would soon learn, didn't acknowledge him. His gaze never shifted, never wavered. He was focused, intent on something far beyond the rider who now stood in front of him. Keanu couldn't help but feel a tug at his heart, something deep and familiar. There was something about the dog's stillness, the way he remained resolute in his watch, that struck a chord within him. He had seen lost souls before, wandering aimlessly, unsure of where they belonged. But this dog wasn't lost. No, this dog was waiting, and waiting for something or someone he believed would come. Keanu took a step closer, then another, but Blaze didn't flinch. His dark eyes remained locked on the empty road ahead, as if he were waiting for a car that would never appear, a person who would never return. From across the street, the faint sound of a bell jingling interrupted the stillness. A woman appeared, stepping out of the small diner that sat on the edge of town. She was older, with sharp, kind eyes and silver-streaked hair that spoke of years spent in this quiet place. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, glancing over at the dog as she made her way toward Keanu. "You're not the first to stop and wonder," she said, her voice soft but steady. "And I doubt you'll be the last." Keanu looked at her, then back at the dog. "What's his story?" His voice was gentle, as if asking about the dog felt like asking about something far more significant. The woman sighed, folding her arms as she leaned against the gas pump. She gazed at Blaze for a long moment before speaking again. "Nobody really knows. He showed up after a bad accident on the highway 5 years ago. Been here ever since. People have tried to take him in, but he always finds his way back. Won't leave, no matter what." Keanu studied the dog again, noting the way he never once shifted his gaze. "He's waiting for someone." The woman nodded, a somber expression crossing her face. "That's what we think too. But the question is, does he even know they're never coming back?" The silence between them grew heavy, the weight of her words settling in the air. Keanu stood still, his thoughts swirling. He had spent much of his life searching for something that made sense in a world that often felt too chaotic to understand. But this dog, this moment, it felt different. He wasn't searching. He wasn't lost. He was waiting for something, believing in something, even if the rest of the world had forgotten. Keanu exhaled slowly, stepping forward. "What's his name?" The woman glanced over at the dog, her expression softening. "Blaze. We named him Blaze after the fire that burned through this place. Figured he deserved a name, since he's been here so long." Keanu crouched down, his eyes meeting Blaze's. He could feel the connection between them, an unspoken understanding. "Hey, Blaze," he said quietly, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Who are you waiting for, buddy?" Blaze didn't move. He didn't even blink. He remained as still as the windless sky above, his eyes locked on the empty road. And yet, Keanu felt something stir deep within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. There was something about Blaze's patience, his loyalty, that resonated with him on a level he couldn't quite explain. It was as if, in that moment, Keanu knew exactly what the dog was waiting for, even if he didn't fully understand why. Keanu stood up slowly, a thought forming in his mind. 5 years, he murmured. How does a dog survive that long out here? The woman's gaze drifted to the gas station, her voice tinged with quiet resignation. "Town's taken care of him in small ways. I leave food out for him every morning before the diner opens. Some of the truckers drop off scraps when they pass through. A couple of people have tried to set up a bed for him, but he never uses it. Sleeps right there, against that old wall." Keanu followed her gaze to the station, his heart heavy with the image of Blaze, waiting, day after day, through storms, through sun, through everything the world could throw at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a dog waiting for someone. This was something more, something that transcended time and loyalty and everything Keanu had ever known. He turned back to Blaze, then to the woman. "That accident, the one you mentioned, what happened?" The woman's face darkened, her eyes clouded with something Keanu couldn't quite place. "It was bad. 5 years ago, a family was driving home late one night. A truck hit them. The parents didn't make it, but there was a boy, Lucas. He survived." She paused, her gaze drifting. Blaze was in that car too. Keanu felt a tightness in his chest. "What happened to the boy?" "He moved away," she said softly. "Distant relatives took him in. Haven't seen him since." Keanu exhaled, the weight of it all settling in his chest. He glanced at Blaze again, the dog's eyes still fixed on the road, unwavering in his vigil. This wasn't just a dog waiting for someone who had gone. This was a dog waiting for the one person who might not even remember him anymore. And Keanu knew in that moment that he had to help. Blaze's wait hadn't ended yet. He pulled out his phone, snapping a picture of Blaze sitting stoically by the pumps. As he uploaded the image to social media, he typed, 5 years. This dog has been sitting at the same spot for 5 years, waiting for someone who may never come back. If you know anything about him, reach out. Let's bring him home. Keanu stared at the screen for a moment before hitting post. He had no idea if anyone would see it, no idea if it would matter. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Hours passed as Keanu sat on the weathered bench outside the diner, his eyes fixed on Blaze, who had not moved an inch. The town was small, quiet. Everything about it felt frozen in time. The only sign of life came from the occasional truck rumbling down the highway or the soft hiss of the diner's coffee machine. But none of it seemed to matter to Blaze. The dog remained rooted in his place, staring at the empty road, as though every passing second brought him one step closer to the return of the person he had been waiting for all these years. Keanu couldn't help but wonder about the bond between Blaze and Lucas, the boy who had been part of a tragic accident. He felt something tugging at his heart, something that told him this wasn't just about a dog waiting. This was about love, loyalty, and the kind of bond that transcended time and distance. A bond that might have been severed by the world but never truly broken. It was when Keanu checked his phone that the real shock came. A flood of notifications poured in. Likes, comments, shares. People from all over the country were reacting to his post. But it wasn't just the overwhelming support that caught his attention. One particular message stood out, sent from a profile named Lucas Carter. "I think I know this dog." Keanu's pulse quickened as he clicked on the message. The text that followed was simple, yet the weight it carried was immense. "That's Blaze. He was mine." The words hit Keanu like a punch to the gut. He sat still for a moment, staring at the screen, trying to process what this meant. After 5 years, after all the pain, the waiting, could it be that Blaze's owner, the one he had been waiting for all this time, was still out there? Keanu's mind raced, but there was no time to waste. The next steps were clear. He immediately messaged Lucas back. "If this really is your dog, you need to come. He's still here. He never left." A few seconds passed before the reply came. It was short, almost hesitant. "Where?" Keanu quickly typed the location of the old gas station, his heart pounding as he waited for Lucas's next response. The thought of a reunion, of Blaze finally seeing the boy he had been waiting for, filled him with an overwhelming sense of anticipation. Keanu stood up, taking one last look at the dog who was still seated by the pumps. He could almost feel the weight of Blaze's silent vigil, the hope that somehow, this time, the person he was waiting for would finally return. There was no way to know what would happen when Lucas arrived, but one thing was certain. Keanu wasn't about to leave until this story reached its rightful end. Before I continue with the incredible reunion that was about to unfold, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever felt that unspoken bond with an animal, a bond that goes beyond words, hit that like button. This story might just make you believe in miracles. As Keanu stood there, the first rays of afternoon sun shining across the highway, he couldn't help but wonder if this was just the beginning of a far greater story. The moments that followed would change everything for Blaze, and for Lucas. The day seemed to stretch endlessly as Keanu waited by the roadside, the air thick with anticipation. Blaze, as always, remained unmoved, his gaze fixed on the horizon, while Keanu kept an eye on his phone, hoping for another message. Then, just as the sun began to dip lower, casting a warm glow over the desert landscape, a car appeared in the distance. It was black, sleek, coming toward them at a steady pace. Keanu's heart began to race, his thoughts swirling. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for, and he could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. As the car slowed and turned into the old gas station lot, Keanu watched, breath caught in his chest, as a man stepped out. His eyes locked onto Blaze almost immediately, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The man was older now, no longer the child he had been in the faded photographs Keanu had seen in Lucas's social media profile. The years had changed him. He was taller, more serious, but there was no mistaking the recognition in his eyes. It was Lucas. Blaze, too, seemed to sense the change in the air. For the first time in 5 years, the dog's posture shifted. His ears twitched, his head lifting ever so slightly. But then, as if some invisible force held him in place, Blaze froze. His eyes didn't leave Lucas, but there was no excitement, no frantic joy in his movements. Instead, there was hesitation. Was it disbelief? Was it fear? Or was it simply that Blaze had spent so long waiting, that after all this time he didn't know how to let go of the past? Lucas stood still for a long moment, his face unreadable. Slowly, cautiously, he took a few steps toward Blaze, calling his name softly. "Blaze, it's me." His voice cracked slightly, filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty, as if testing whether the dog would remember him. Blaze didn't move. Lucas swallowed hard, his gaze never leaving the dog's. He seemed to be holding his breath, waiting for a response that might never come. Every second felt like an eternity. He took another step closer, his voice trembling this time. "Blaze, it's really me. I've come back. I'm sorry. I'm here." Still, Blaze remained motionless, his eyes locked on Lucas but unblinking, as if caught between two worlds, the past and the present. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of unspoken years. Keanu stood off to the side, watching intently, unsure of what to do or say. This was more than just a reunion. This was a reckoning, a test of loyalty and memory, one that would decide whether the past could ever truly be left behind. Lucas hesitated, his heart pounding. What if Blaze had forgotten him? What if the years of waiting had changed everything, made the connection between them too distant to repair? He couldn't bear the thought of it. He had failed Blaze once before, he couldn't do it again. With a deep breath, Lucas knelt down, lowering himself to Blaze's level, offering the dog a familiar gesture. He extended his hand, his voice quiet but steady. "Come here, buddy. It's really me. I won't leave you this time." Blaze's eyes flickered for the briefest moment, a subtle change in the depth of his gaze, but the dog didn't move. Keanu watched closely, sensing the gravity of the situation. Was this the moment Blaze would finally recognize his old friend? Or was the pain of those 5 years too much for the dog to overcome? Just as the tension seemed unbearable, a shift occurred. Blaze's body tensed, his tail twitching ever so slightly. Lucas's breath caught. Could it be? Was Blaze finally going to make the connection? But then, in an unexpected turn, Blaze suddenly stood up and turned away, walking back toward the wall of the gas station, resuming his place. He sat down, facing the road once more, as if nothing had changed. The weight of rejection hit Lucas hard, his heart sinking deep into his chest. He had come all this way, but was Blaze still holding on to something from the past that couldn't be bridged? Keanu stepped forward, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Give him time," he said gently, his voice calm but filled with the understanding of someone who had witnessed many forms of loss. "It's not that simple. He's been waiting for 5 years." Lucas looked up, his eyes filled with confusion and pain. "But he remembers me, right? He has to." Keanu didn't answer right away, instead watching Blaze, who remained completely still, his eyes fixed on the road. "Time doesn't always work the way we want it to," he said softly. "But you're here now, and that means something." Lucas nodded, his gaze never leaving Blaze. "I won't give up on him again. I can't." As the sun set behind them, casting a golden glow over the empty lot, a faint breeze picked up, rustling the dry leaves and stirring the dust on the pavement. The air felt heavy with the weight of so many years. Blaze remained at his post, watching the road as if waiting for something, someone, yet to come. Could Lucas truly remind Blaze of the past? Would the dog ever believe that he wasn't just waiting for a ghost? What would it take to heal the wounds of those 5 long years? The answers seemed distant, as far off as the empty highway stretching into the horizon. But one thing was certain, this was only the beginning of their journey. What would it take for Blaze to recognize Lucas again? Would the dog's loyalty and patience finally be rewarded? Or would the scars of the past be too deep to overcome? Only time would tell, but the road ahead was one they would have to walk together. Lucas stayed kneeling for a few moments longer, his hand resting on Blaze's head, his heart still racing with the uncertainty that had plagued him since he first saw the dog sitting at the gas station. Blaze's tail twitched slightly, and Lucas felt a faint flicker of hope stir in his chest. This was a moment of connection, something that had been lost for years, but now it was slowly beginning to find its way back. Lucas knew it wouldn't be easy. There was still so much to overcome, so much time lost between them, but he was willing to fight for it, for Blaze, for their bond. Keanu, who had been watching silently from a distance, knew the significance of this moment. He had seen the way the dog had waited, and he could see the way Lucas was fighting to reach the part of Blaze that had been buried under so many years of waiting and loss. There was no rush. Time would tell how long it would take, but Keanu had a feeling that this would be the beginning of something new, something that would heal both of them. After a few more moments of silence, Lucas stood, carefully holding Blaze's collar and giving it a gentle tug. Blaze followed, his steps hesitant but steady, as if testing the ground beneath him. There was no wild rush of joy, no frantic jumping or barking, just a quiet acceptance, a shift in the air that was more profound than any show of emotion. They walked together toward the worn-down gas station, Lucas glancing down at the dog every few seconds, making sure Blaze was still there. Blaze's gaze remained fixed on the road ahead, though, as if there was something more, something else he was still waiting for. Keanu approached them slowly, his footsteps soft on the dusty ground. "You've got a long road ahead of you," he said quietly, his voice filled with an understanding that only time could give. "But you're not alone anymore." Lucas looked up at him, a weak smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I never thought I'd find him again," he admitted. "I thought he was lost to me forever." Keanu smiled back, the flicker of a shared understanding passing between them. "Some things take longer to find their way back," he said. "But you'll get there. Together." As the day wore on, the quiet peace of the desert evening settled in. Blaze and Lucas sat by the old gas station, neither of them speaking much. Blaze's head rested on Lucas's lap, his body relaxing in the way he used to when they were younger, when life was simpler. For a moment, everything felt right again. The pain of the years apart, the uncertainty of whether they could truly be a family again, faded into the background. All that mattered in that moment was that they had found each other again. But as the sky began to darken and the first stars of the night appeared, something shifted. A faint noise broke the stillness, a sound from the road that neither Lucas nor Keanu had expected. It was distant at first, barely audible, but it grew louder with each passing second. The rumble of a truck engine, the sound of tires on gravel, an unmistakable sign that someone was coming. Blaze's ears perked up immediately, his body going rigid as he stood. His head snapped toward the horizon, his eyes wide, his breath quickening. The truck had not yet reached the station, but Blaze was already reacting, as though sensing something in the air. His tail stiffened, and he began pacing, his eyes fixed on the approaching vehicle. "Blaze," Lucas whispered, but the dog didn't turn to look at him. The intensity in his eyes, the urgency in the way he paced back and forth, was unmistakable. Something was happening. Something was changing. Keanu watched closely, his instinct telling him that this wasn't just any passing truck. Something about this was different. He looked at Lucas, who was still trying to understand what Blaze's behavior meant. "Is it him?" Keanu asked quietly. Lucas's heart began to race again. He had no idea. He didn't know if this was the moment that Blaze had been waiting for all this time. He had no idea who could be behind the wheel of that truck. But something told him that it was important. The weight of Blaze's reaction, the way he seemed to sense something long before it arrived, it was too real to ignore. Blaze's pacing grew more frantic as the truck neared, its headlights cutting through the dusky light. His breathing grew heavier, and then, just as the truck came to a stop, Blaze froze. His body tensed as he stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the truck with such intensity it was as though his very being was attuned to it. The truck's engine cut off, and for a moment, there was only silence. And then the door of the truck opened. Blaze's ears flicked as the figure stepped out, silhouetted against the dim light of the truck. Lucas's heart seemed to stop. He held his breath, his eyes locked on the scene in front of him. Could this really be the moment? Could this be what Blaze had been waiting for all along? The figure took a slow step forward, moving with hesitation. Blaze's tail, which had been stiff with tension, now began to lower just slightly, his body still trembling with anticipation. And then, in the dim light, Lucas caught a glimpse of the face, familiar, but older. A young man grown into someone completely different from the child Lucas had known. The figure didn't move toward Blaze right away. Instead, he stood still, taking in the dog, the scene, the moment. There was no joy in his expression, no rush to reach the animal he had once loved. But there was something in his eyes, a recognition, a flash of something deeper, something buried under the years of separation. He took a cautious step forward. "Blaze." The voice was low, but it carried the weight of time, of loss, of hope. The name, spoken so quietly, yet with such reverence, caused something deep inside Blaze to shift. Slowly, cautiously, Blaze took a single step forward, his body still uncertain, but his eyes never leaving the figure in front of him. The dog's breath slowed, his tail twitching just slightly as he made that first move toward the one person he had been waiting for. And just like that, The silence of 5 long years began to crack, the first fragments of a reunion shattering through the air. The moment hung in the air, thick with anticipation, as Blaze took that single, hesitant step toward Lucas. The world around them seemed to disappear, the sound of the wind, the trucks passing by, all drowned out by the beating of their hearts. The years between them, the pain of separation, the uncertainty of this moment. It all felt like it had melted away in the instant Blaze moved forward. Lucas stood frozen, his eyes locked onto Blaze, his breath caught in his chest. He had waited for this moment for so long, but now that it was finally happening, he wasn't sure what to do, what to expect. Every instinct told him to rush to the dog, to embrace him, to make up for every lost second. But something told him to wait, to let Blaze make the first move. This was Blaze's journey too. He had been the one to wait for 5 years, and now it was his time to decide if he was ready to trust again. Blaze stopped just a few feet from Lucas, his body tense, his head slightly lowered. His eyes, once full of unshakable hope, now held a flicker of uncertainty. It was as if the dog was searching for something, a sign, a confirmation that this moment was real, that Lucas was truly back. Lucas took a deep breath, his heart aching with the weight of the years that had passed. He knelt down slowly, his hands trembling as he extended them toward Blaze, not wanting to startle him, but hoping to offer the comfort that he had been so desperate to give for years. "It's me, Blaze. I'm not going anywhere this time," Lucas whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Blaze's ears twitched, and for the briefest moment, his body relaxed, just enough to show that he was listening, that he was remembering. The dog's eyes softened, and in them, Lucas saw a flicker of recognition. A glimpse of the dog he had loved so deeply. The hesitation, the pain of waiting for so long, was still there, but it was slowly starting to fade, replaced by the quiet trust that had never fully left. Slowly, hesitantly, Blaze took another step forward. His body was trembling now, not from fear, but from something else. An overwhelming rush of emotion, the raw need for connection that had been buried for so long. His tail, which had been stiff and uncertain, began to wag gently. It was slow at first, but as he reached Lucas, the wagging grew more confident, more assured. Lucas's breath hitched as he reached out, his hands finally touching Blaze's fur, feeling the warmth of the dog that had been a part of his life, that had never given up on him, even when it seemed like all hope was lost. The touch was a balm, soothing both of them, filling the space between them with something powerful, something healing. For a long moment, neither of them moved. They simply stood there, Blaze resting his head in Lucas's hands, Lucas holding him close, their bond reaffirmed in the quiet simplicity of the moment. Keanu stood back, watching this reunion unfold with quiet satisfaction. He knew that moments like these were rare, precious, and when they happened, they were a reminder of the deep, unspoken connections that could never truly be broken, no matter how much time had passed. He had seen many things in his life, but this was different. This was real. Blaze let out a soft whine, nuzzling his face into Lucas's chest, his body trembling with relief, with joy. The dog had waited for 5 long years, but now, in Lucas's arms, the waiting had ended. The bond between them, once broken by time and circumstance, had been mended, piece by piece. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't a rush of emotion or excitement. It was quiet, tender, and profound. Lucas closed his eyes, his own tears threatening to spill. He had failed Blaze once by leaving him behind, by not coming back soon enough. But now, in this moment, he had a chance to make it right. And he would. He would never leave Blaze again. The dog had waited too long, and Lucas knew that he would spend the rest of his life making up for the lost years. Keanu stepped forward, his eyes soft with understanding. He placed a hand gently on Lucas's shoulder, offering him silent support, knowing that this was a moment neither of them would ever forget. "You did good," Keanu said quietly. "He's with you now." Lucas nodded, his throat tight. He didn't know how to thank Keanu for being there, for helping him find Blaze again. But the gratitude was there, in the quiet, in the way he held Blaze, in the way his heart was finally at peace. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, the three of them stood there together. The bond between man, dog, and stranger now unspoken but undeniable. Blaze was home, Lucas was home, and together, they would face whatever came next, knowing that the love between them was stronger than any distance, any time lost. The road ahead would not be easy. It would take time for Blaze to fully trust again, for both of them to heal from the wounds of the past. But as the stars began to emerge in the twilight sky, they knew that, at last, they had found their way back to each other. No more waiting, no more wondering, just the quiet certainty that, from now on, they would walk this journey together. Now that you've read this incredible story, I'd love to know what you think. How did this reunion between Blaze and Lucas make you feel? Did it touch your heart the way it touched mine? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story brought a smile to your face, go ahead and comment too. I want to know how much you enjoyed it. If it didn't quite hit the mark for you, comment 7. Your feedback matters. And remember, if you believe in the power of loyalty, love, and second chances, don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to hear it. For more heartfelt, unforgettable stories just like this, hit that subscribe button and become part of the Tapestry of Worlds family. Together, let's keep sharing the connections that truly matter.